Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It's Thursday. What month is it? December 5th. It's week 272 of the 2024 NFL season's week 14. We're going to be talking about the Bills and the Rams, the Falcons and the Vikings, the Bears, and the increasingly desperate 49ers, the Chargers, the Chiefs, going long on every week 14 game, except for, of course, Thursday Night Football, which we already previewed on Tuesday. Denny Carter and myself, one ever good game on Bezos Vision, so that's nice tonight.
It is. You get one.
Yeah, for Amazon. But guess what's not on Bezos Vision, you guys? Is Aaron Rodgers, Enigma. That one is not on NBC either. It's going to Netflix. And, you can't set your DVR on Netflix because this is on demand. But how fast did you set your DVR to watch Aaron Rodgers Enigma?
So fast, because the one thing that I don't get enough of is Aaron Rodgers coverage.
Or his unfiltered thought. I never get this guy's unfiltered thoughts.
You're right. It's so hard to access him and what he thinks through the media, and it's fine if we finally get a revelation of what he he thinks, who he is, and it's great. It's great. I can't wait.
Kyle, what about you? Are you too busy tweeting at Ryan Day directly?
Does Ryan Day there's no way Ryan Day has a Twitter.
Zero chance.
Ryan Day doesn't have a phone. He doesn't have a computer.
Do you know how much time that guy has to spend dyeing his goatee? I mean, he doesn't have time.
Ryan Day, let's be frank. How does Ryan Day still have his job? Because he does a glow up every single
He does.
And if you watch the latest Galaxy Brains, Denny and I lay out 3 ways that if you're an embattled on the hot seat head coach, you can save your job. One of them is a weekly glow up. You laugh at Ryan Day dyeing his beard a shade of black that is so unnatural that it obscures the camera. Like if the camera hits him and the camera goes out of focus. Sorry about that.
It's more of a scientific black. Like the paints were this paint absorbs 99.999% of light. And it's the world record. I think it's called Vanta Black is one of them.
But yeah, Ryan Day, I made my observation to Kyle. So I dabble in multiple online worlds. I follow a lot of people in the writing community or the music community. I've seen lots of people don't post much about sports, just posting stuff since Ryan Day belongs in jail. Ryan Day should go sit on a volcano. I'm wow. So even normal people want Ryan Day horribly fired.
Yeah. It's why is Martin Scorsese weighing in on this?
Let me look this up. Ryan Day lost 1 game. And let's be real, Ryan Day's the worst. I mean, he still has a job.
We've talked about this in private, but he's just Shanahan for college football.
Yes.
3/4 of games, 3/4 of an individual game, he keeps the ship running on time. He recruits well. They have great players. They win all the easy games, and they literally never are clutch. And you can see it written all over his face the moment he steps onto the field for a game that actually matters.
No, it's true. He builds his entire roster around beating Michigan in a way that makes them worse in other games. They makes their offense less explosive because they want it to be more Michigan proof, and then he still just loses to Michigan.
What kind of favorites were they against Michigan?
20.
They were huge favorites, man. Michigan sucks this year.
Michigan's awful. They were missing 2 first-round picks.
Oh no, I know. Every time I tune into a Michigan game, it's like, well, if they can get a touchdown here, they can cut the lead to 27 in the fourth quarter. I never seen. I will say the drop off in Florida State this year has been more shocking. But Michigan has been crazy bad. I didn't even know what was happening until I logged on after the Ohio State game, and I was like, wait, they're rioting? Does that mean Michigan won?
Hey, I shout out to some of those Columbus folks who handled the loss very well by pepper spraying Michigan players.
For no reason.
A lot of really good cope there in Columbus.
No reason.
Look, we're getting to the 19 seed. They invite 24 teams to playoff now. We get the 19 seed going, a little Cinderella run. Next year they'll expand it to 36 teams. We'll be playing until August.
Did Ohio State make it?
Oh, yeah, they're going to make it. Oh, yeah, the whole playoff exists. The playoff format is always about how do we get Ohio State in the playoff.
Okay.
It really is. So, it's how can we get a 5th SEC team and how can we get the Buckeyes in? How can we get the marquee teams in? And if the marquee teams don't look like they're going to make it this year, expand.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was a nightmare scenario last year for the playoffs when Ohio State missed and then lost to Mizzou. So they have to change the whole format to make sure Ohio State never has to play Mizzou again. The probably not good Rams host the probably very good Bills as around 5-point home favorites, I believe, down to 4, underdogs, the Rams. The biggest story here has been Kyren Williams' declining usage, at least relatively speaking, to the absolute workhorse he was to begin the year. Denny, is there anything here, or is it maybe just a couple weeks worth of fluky workloads? The lack of receptions definitely catch the eye. No pun intended to Denny and his style.
Yes, I do have a pretty nasty sty. I'm actually glad it doesn't look like it did yesterday. But Kyren Williams, still running a decent route rate, but with Puka and Kupp in the lineup, his pass game involvement just tanks. Like there's just no way around that. So he becomes more touchdown dependent. We've seen him kind of fluctuate in that role. I think this is a pretty good spot for Kyren Williams because the Bills, they play a ton of 2 high safeties. They invite the run. We've talked about that all year. If game script can remain somewhat normal here, which I think is somewhat of a question. I feel like the Bills are a different class than the Rams, but
this could be a boat racing.
Yeah. But if it's somewhat neutral game script, Kyren Williams is taking on a Buffalo team that allows the 3rd highest rate of rush yards before contact. So it could be a way worse spot for Kyren Williams.
And Blake Corum finally breaks all the way out now.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
it's too important. The game is too important.
Yeah,
Pat, that was a no. You hang up first thing. Well, Blake Corum. Well, no, it couldn't. maybe Blake Corum. No, there's no way. No, you hang up, Blake.
And man, my 10th place best ball teams could use some Corum this week.
That's true. The true words never spoken, brother. Kyle, Khalil Shakir keeps on chugging for the Buffalo Bills, while Amari Cooper is not producing. Part of it, wonky game scripts, snowstorms, lake effect snow, things of that nature. But Keon Coleman should be returning. What can we expect after last week's snow-dusted data outputs for the likes of Amari Cooper and Khalil Shakir?
Yeah, I think the thing is Khalil Shakir is just pretty good. He's top 10 in yards per route run.
I've had a hard time accepting this, but yeah, he's pretty good.
I think, to your point, I don't think he's a player you could expand into a role that is a true number 1 receiver role, but we're starting to see that role, especially in some spots. You look at the Chiefs, obviously, but like somehow the Dolphins are doing this too, where it's not a true number 1. It's a pass catching core by committee where everyone has roles, and it helps all of them. It doesn't help Tyreek Hill's efficiency, but it helps guys like Achane and Jonnu Smith. It helps guys on the Chiefs who only have one job and they can do that job well. I kind of think that's Khalil Shakir is the peak of that, where he's not a true number 1 receiver by any stretch of the imagination. But when you put him with Josh Allen and you make sure you're manufacturing looks for him, he can turn out to be top 10 yards per route run, top 10 targets per route run, an elite yak producer. And last week they did just make the whole offense out of him. As you point out, it's a pretty wonky game in that they just don't, I think they threw well under 20 times. So it's easy to rack up high target shares, high air yard shares, but he topped 40% in both. On the limited pass attempts, they were all going to him. So I'm pretty comfortable just ranking him well ahead, frankly, of Amari Cooper. And Keon Coleman probably gets a probation week back. Just not sure exactly what we see from him. He was really surging right before suffering the wrist injury, but wouldn't be surprising if this injury setback leads to a role setback for at least a week or 2.
That's what's so frustrating. Keon Coleman, he was legitimately breaking out, and you have no choice, but you just cannot start him this week if he even returns. For all we know, maybe he'll be out again. Real quick, I mean, if you have Amari Cooper, are you looking for wide receiver 3 alternatives? Are you just trusting, finally probably fully healthy? We don't even know if he was fully healthy the past 2 weeks. They're on the road in a dome, actual like good spot for the Bills, or has he just become too unreliable to even start as a wide receiver 3, Amari Cooper?
I think he's wide receiver 3 adjacent. I still think you project him for the second most targets on the team behind Khalil Shakir, but he's not as efficient as Shakir. I don't think he's as heavily involved. I know he's not as heavily involved in the offense as Shakir. And I think if Coleman's return hurts anyone, it probably is a boundary receiver like Amari Cooper, who they're going to play in a similar depth of target type of field. So probably still wide receiver 3. We'll mention this point 10 to 20 times on the show, but there are at least 30 teams on bye. So
it's going to be hard not to continually mention it. But yeah, our last Buyapalooza was 627 teams on bye, which is Denny. One reason I'm asking this question, can we keep treating Matthew Stafford as a QB1, at least as a low-end QB1, kind of all over the map in the rankings? I have him as exactly as the QB12, so the lowest end QB1. Do you agree? Because he's had a floor, no real ceiling still, though. What do you think about Matthew Stafford and his ranking?
Before I get into this this whole thing with Stafford, where he's being treated like in his old age, he's being treated like a savant. It's a little much. I don't know.
Who's doing that?
Every article I click on with Matthew Stafford in the headline is about like how no one has seen the game as beautifully as he's not Russell Crowe, man, in A Beautiful Mind. Like he's a quarterback who's been in the league for 35 years. Yeah, he knows how to read a defense. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway,
I do think the ball knowers really love to point out how good Stafford is. I'm like,
they do.
You got to hand to him. He got the Super Bowl. Like, you can't ever take that away from him. Only took him, like Denny said, 30 years, but you got it.
I mean, really old man. It's like at the end of Marino's career being like, man, now this guy can read a defense. Like, oh, okay. Anyway, Stafford against Bills. Buffalo's middle of the road and pretty much everything past defense related. They are allowing the third highest completion rate over expected on short throws. So I think this is more of like a check down game, probably more, probably a better spot for Cooper Kupp slightly than Puka. The Bills are the 7th most extreme run funnel. So again, I think if things can stay neutral here, the Rams are going to want to center things around Kyren Williams.
Aaron Rodgers says the Jets are merely enigmatic instead of awful. Whatever they are, they're bumping up against touchdown underdogs against a not great Dolphins team, Kyle. Maybe they're okay. But at this point, how do we even feel about Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson as wide receiver twos? Rodgers, this week, after horribly missing Garrett Wilson all last week, saying we got to get the ball more to Garrett Wilson. But can we even have any hope anymore in this Jets situation with these wideouts?
I think there's a little room for hope, but it is frustrating that we're at the point where I'm squinting to rank these guys as wide receiver twos. And I'm going to use the caveat. There's a lot of teams on bye over the past 3 weeks in which they've had a really bad slump for both receivers. I think the best game among them was a 15 or 16 point game from Davante Adams between the two for 3 weeks in a row. During that stretch, both of them are inside the top 24 in expected fantasy points. Obviously, Garrett especially hasn't lived up to that expectation. Davante just kind of right at expectation. But that's still a pretty good role to play. Dolphins have been really strict in allowing fantasy points to wide receivers, second fewest. The offense is slumping. I guess I think volume-based, you still kind of have to, but is it going to surprise me if they finish with 14 and 9 points again this week? No, this offense isn't built for fun.
When was the last time we saw any legitimate sign of hope in this Jets offense? It's kind of what I come back to.
They had a really good game, I think. Literally 4 games ago.
Yeah. It is just why would I expect anything to change at this point? It's kind of where I'm at with Davante Adams and Garrett. He can still – my new hobby horse with Rodgers is the arm talent is still amazing, but his lower half, he's just not athletic anymore. He's not strong enough anymore where he can't even get set to use his arm talent. And it's just has wrecked the whole thing.
He's also banged up and he won't admit it.
Yeah.
Because I think he's trying to, he said his goal is to play 17 games, I guess, come hell or high water.
Well, he's an enigma. Denny, the Tua check down machine is roaring like never before.
Oh, man.
It's not the most pleasant watch, but is it QB1 relevant? It probably is this week with the 42 buys.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, 5.8 air yards per attempt for Tua. That's the lowest in the NFL this season. It's actually been lower than that over the past 3 games. So that's why Jonnu Smith is suddenly Gronk and Devon Achane.
Dude, Gronk was never like this, man. This is Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates.
So I actually last week Jonnu Smith. Did they have were they in prime time? Dolphins?
Yeah, they were on NBC, a little network. You ever heard of the National Broadcasting Corporation?
I have heard of them. Anyway, yes. And I needed him in a Thursday contest and a Thanksgiving contest, and it got egregious at the end. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is a little much.
Back off a little bit, yeah.
All right, 10 receptions. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's gross. It's a disgusting offense. But 23, 31, and 28 fantasy points for Tua over the past 3 games. Here's the problem: only 2 teams this season have been over their expected pass rate against the Jets. So I kind of feel like the Dolphins might be a little conservative here.
The Jets are off the sauce. I don't know if you've heard. Mr. Gardner has a hamstring injury. So
Yeah. Oh, true. Yes. There you go. Maybe Tyreek Hill could crack 10 PPR points.
to be honest,
Also, have we used that as a headline before? Off the sauce, like Gardner out
and
for week whatever.
That's good.
no, and we should not actually.
No,
yeah.
come on. I got the Friday blurb shift, so I'll be the one
No,
who
you're-
probably writes up him missing. I've got
You're right.
I've got a quick funny to stat if you guys would like.
Yeah.
So there have been 3 quarterbacks, a few of them repeats, who have had a quicker time to throw in the past 14 years than Tua. Think about who would be getting the ball out the fastest.
I was gonna make the
season.
same comparison. I know who you're gonna say. I'm not gonna say it because I want you to.
No,
say
guess.
the
Go
name.
ahead.
No, I was gonna. When I look at his box scores, I see 2012 to 2014 Peyton Manning is what I see.
That's one of them. And the other 2 are stunningly similar. It's it's Bucs era Tom Brady and 2020s, so 20 and 21 Ben Roethlisberger. All of them were 38 years old or older. Like there was a physical need for these guys to get the ball out instantly, and some of them did it well. And Tua is doing it well, but he is being treated as if his body is turning to dust in front of our eyes. You guessed it instantly.
He is
Manning
making it
was one
work.
of the
I see.
doubles.
When I saw his box score, I saw 2012, 2013 Peyton Manning because that's what he had. No arm. Everything was just precision short passing, and no one could stop it for 2 or 3
I think these were actually 2014, 2015 Peyton Manning. They were like the final year with the Broncos and the penultimate year, I think.
Yeah, well, after Jeff Fisher injured both his quads, and he was never the same. Not a joke, actually. In St. Louis, I'm dead serious. In
you've told me this before.
2014, at the Dome in St. Louis, like week 11 or 12, they were hitting. It was like late hitting. Like Fisher was doing his thing, just late hitting the hell out of Peyton, just getting battered. He injured both his quads and was never good again. He was never ever good again after facing Jeff Fisher. So people say St. Louis. Nothing's going on. Well, guess what? They ended Peyton Manning.
There you go. Congratulations, I guess.
Yeah, I know it was very sad, actually. Kyle, what is your take on the Jets' backfield? Weird times for Breece Hall. Very high. I'd say it's sounding more doubtful than questionable. We do not know his status, though. Just take folks through the Jets' backfield right now.
Yeah, I mean, even last week when he played, he was not the typical Breece Hall we'd seen. He was held without a catch for only the 3rd time in his career. The last time was like week 2 of last year, as in he had just returned from his torn ACL, and the other time was the week he tore his ACL. They're treating him as if he's like injured mid-game or is coming back from an injury, and it looked like that when he was getting subbed off. He was on the bike. He only had 12 carries, I believe. They even got 3rd stringer Isaiah Davis in there for design targets. I think if he doesn't play, it's probably a 1-2 punch of Braylon Allen seeing most of between the tackles work. He's been really explosive between the tackles, but probably not getting all 3 downs, which I would probably call. I would have called my shot and say he's getting every touch a month or 2 ago. I do think we'd see some Isaiah Davis as a change of pace option if Breece doesn't play. If Breece does, he's really good. He still played a lot last week. He still played a fringe RB1 role. He saw the bulk of the carries and was still running routes. He just didn't get the targets as much. You have to start him and just pray.
I do think the problem is that he entered the game injured, and then he did get a little more injured. And
didn't get listed as questionable, but he's just on the bike on the sidelines. You see trainers giving him a look like he's not right. He's playing, but and who knows if he plays this week, as you said.
There was some thought that he was going to miss several weeks with this knee injury.
And then again, I think they gave him like one chance to play through it and didn't go super well. I could see them erring on the side of caution and him not playing, but it's Thursday afternoon. We just don't know. Keep it locked to rotoworld.com. Danny, can even 6 teams on bye get Jalen Waddle back into the top 30? Or we got the spiked week 2 weeks ago, then was back to quote unquote normal against the Packers. Where can you start this guy even during the final bye-mageddon?
I mean, in 12-team league, I feel like you should probably start him, but nothing has really changed as far as, his place in the Miami offense. The production has been decent of late, but he's only drawing a target on 15% of his routes over the past 2 games. That's right on par with his season-long rate. That's why I say nothing really has changed. He's just doing more with it after the catch. I don't know if that's something you can bank on. I would have liked to see that target per route run rate jump a little bit in order to be like, yes, they are definitely making him a thing. Also, his slot usage is exactly the same as it's been throughout the season. So nothing has changed. And with all the teams on bye, I guess you start him.
I guess you start. By the way, I was just thinking about that. I was thinking more about Jonnu just stealing a lot of Jalen Waddle's targets. I just realized Bill Belichick, he gets a job this winter or whatever. It's clear he's going to get a job. First thing he does is he's like, you know what? going to make Jonnu Smith work this time. This time it's going to count. After somehow I was the one guy who could not make Jonnu Smith relevant.
Yeah.
The Vikings smell blood in the water as they host former quarterback / arch enemy Kirk Cousins. It's roughly 5 to 6 point home favorites. Denny, you told us about El Cookdo on Tuesday. I'm sorry. He's very cooked though. So I'll ask about the ever frustrating Viking skill core. Where are we at with Justin Jefferson and his lost targets to Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson? We did finally see some box score bounce back last week.
Yeah.
But quite regrettably, he did not get the 100-yard bonus.
No, he did not. And I don't know if he's going to get it here because I feel like this game's not going to be close. But, Jefferson was back on top last week with a 30% target share. He was still behind Jordan Addison in air yards for the 4th straight week, amazingly. So we don't love that. But I can't complain too much about how this Vikings offense is being run. I'm
definitely going to do it. I have had no issue doing it.
You guys
it's not even working.
You should. It's not even working.
They're 10 wins.
They're top 5 in the top 5 in pass rate over expected. They were 14% over their expected pass rate last week against Arizona. So everybody just shut up about Justin Jefferson not getting there. The Falcons are neither a run nor a pass funnel. They are weirdly, I have to just throw this out here. The Falcons defense is allowing the 7th lowest offensive success rate since week 10.
Who cares? Fake.
Is that fake? Is that the computer not knowing?
That's absolutely.
I mean, fake. I saw that and I was like, what?
Well, didn't remember Justin Herbert doing absolutely nothing against them.
There you go.
That would have been. It would have been cool if he had done anything.
But yeah, you look at this and tell me it's working. All right. The Vikings.
Okay.
Justin Jefferson has gone a month without scoring or reaching 100 yards. It is weird.
That would be cool.
He doesn't have a 25-point game this year. We're still looking for it. I swear to God.
We're looking very hard. We're looking very easily, Kyle, for evidence that Kirk Cousins is fried. Denny got to do his spiel on Tuesday. Now let's take us through how absolutely cooked Mr. Kirk Cousins is.
I probably don't think he's as cooked as you guys do, but they didn't pay for, he's not that cooked, but he's still kind of cooked Kirk Cousins, clearly.
Yeah, they paid for 6 picks and 0 touchdowns since pass restarts. Mm-hmm. And the 2 worst throws in the entire season.
Yeah, it was a bad look for him. Right now, he's top 20, but just barely in CPOE, EPA per play, and PFF's accuracy charting, both accuracy and accuracy plus. But he's top 20 is, and he's just inside. I couldn't call him top 15. And that's a big fall off from where he was, especially in EPA and CPOE last year. He was 6 in both of those metrics. He really was cooking before he got hurt. And this year, on totality in the year, he's just fine. And that's really not what they paid for. And when they're going to end up being a relatively run-heavy team, being just fine as a passer and not passing the football a lot makes it very difficult for the pass catchers to get there.
My take on Cousins is that not an original take, that it's probably back to being something physical. Because, in week 1, where he clearly did not trust his body, it was like, yikes, Kirk not driving these balls. There's nothing left. He just does not look ready physically. And then he looked like normal Kirk for a while. But now we are going on several weeks where it's kind of looking like week 1 Kirk, where there's just no drive on these balls. And I wonder if he's banged up lower half and just cannot drive the ball, and it's all arm, right? Because those picks were like the classic, they were all arm.
One of them was so bad. The one to his right, guy in the flat, and the defender almost overruns the jumping the route. It was embarrassing.
I know it's true. The defender almost got to the INT earlier, right?
Yeah.
I just think that there's probably got to be something wrong with Cousins' lower half. Denny, you told us Sunday Aaron Jones as well post-peak. I've been writing this every week in my rankings article too. But any new insights in the intervening 3 days? He's been overcoming injury issues. Now he's had fumble issues of late. He got 2 quarters to think about what he had done last Sunday, which was fumbling twice. Any new perspective on Aaron Jones or not really?
Yeah, I may have been a little quick on the draw there with saying rest in peace to Aaron Jones as a fantasy option, because you zoom out a little bit. Aaron Jones has a 42-17 rushing attempt advantage over Cam Akers over the past 3 weeks. Last week it was much closer because, like you said, Aaron Jones fumbled twice in the first quarter and was benched. He's running about a 46% route rate over the past 3 weeks. It's not great, but it's something. And, Minnesota enters this game as a 6-point favorite, should have good game script. should have, the kind of game script where they can lean on the run a little bit. The Falcons are not bad as a run defense, but they're not great either.
Kyle, Darnell Mooney overachieved for months, but is he kind of finally fading from even wide receiver 3 relevance? There was a time where he was kind of in the top 20, at least 20 to 24 range. I mean, now with Kirk Cousins, struggling. Can we even trust Mooney as a wide receiver 3?
It's not a bad spot for him. I will say it was very clear that he was going to come back to earth because he's Darnell Mooney. He's fine. Like not to badmouth the guy, but he's just fine. He's probably best served as a team's number 3, and they've been forced to use him as their number 2. He's outside the top 60 in ESPN's open score and their overall score. He's hanging around wide receiver 40 in both PFF receiving grade and yards per route run. He's not good at earning targets on a per route basis, but if you run all the routes,
other than that, come on.
If you run all the routes, you're a bit of a splash play artist. You can run hot. And I will say, this is a great game. This is the game last week that revived Marvin Harrison. It wasn't a great stat line, but he got home on a few chunk plays and a touchdown because albeit the Vikings are a really good defense, teams are forced to pass against them a lot, and they do give up big chunk plays through the air, and that's what Darnell Mooney does. He goes out and runs the chunk play type of routes. So I actually think it's not the worst week to rank him as a wide receiver 3 one last time.
It's the Vikings are so explosive up front that yes, they do get burned a lot of the back. But I just worry, like Kirk Cousins, this might be the game where he totally crumbles. And,
it might be.
I mean, he's experienced. He could navigate the blitz, I'm sure, except for on third down where he's never not once been sacked. That was very true. The Vikings allow a ton of passing yards, ton of receiver fantasy points. I just don't know if Cousins can really deliver that.
74% of the yards gained against Minnesota this year have come through the air. It's the 3rd highest rate in the league. So it's
Bijan this week.
Oh no, it's a bad spot for Bijan.
Bijan's got that target share. They like to throw him the ball. He'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I need him so desperately in my home dynasty league. It has no financial implications. It's just for my ego, and it's fragile right now. I need Bijan. Next game, Pat. I'm doing fine, folks. I'm hanging on.
For actionable purposes, obviously you're starting Mooney, London, but I think also you can get weird with Ray McLeod, my guy.
Yeah, I noticed you did not say Kyle Pitts.
No, you can't start Kyle.
Yikes. Moving on. In varying degrees of crisis, the Bears and 49ers meet up in Santa Clara, California. The Niners operating around modest 4.5-point home favorites, Kyle. It's been a season of one step forward, one step back for Caleb Williams, but he had one of his better overall starts on Thanksgiving Day, game-ending brain fart, notwithstanding. Game-ending brain fart that got his coach fired, notwithstanding. But any juice here in this mega hella bye week for Caleb, or is he still just too risky to treat as a top 12 QB?
Yeah, probably not a top 12 quarterback. I think there are worse spots to start him in, just in that the team really has played better. The offense has played better, and he has played better since Thomas Brown took over as the interim offensive coordinator, and then obviously the interim head coach as well, climbing the corporate
interim
ladder.
GM, interim owner, interim mayor of Chicago, who pushes the stadium deal through.
Interim the whole time, though. They never actually give him the job. He's just a placeholder. But the policy changes he's making are impactful, and they have been impactful for the Bears offense, who for 2 weeks were just a screen-based check down team. And I think I was among those on the show thought, like, how sustainable is this when every throw is just like, all right, DJ Moore, you've caught it 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Go out there and get him. And he did do well at that, especially in the second game. Last week, they played a different style of football and were also successful. An 11.68 on. We had deep targets, 3 of which I believe for DJ Moore. It was 3 of his 4 since Thomas Brown took over. They still used him in the screen game, though. 2 targets on screens. They just used him more throughout the field. So I think the fact that they've shown that they can win in multiple ways, 49ers generally do get beat better on short throws than deep, but they have this versatility to their game, I think matters and makes him probably top 15. I still don't think he's quite in the QB1 ranks, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him finish as such.
Nick Bosa is still not practicing for the San Francisco 49ers would be a nice boost for Mr. Caleb Williams. By the way, the 100-yard bonus, Justin Jefferson, 99 yards last week. DJ Moore, 97 yards. Not keeping count whatsoever, though. Denny, what kind of 49ers offensive approach can we expect to see considering their injury issues, including Brock Purdy's shoulder, and the relatively tough defensive matchup that is the Bears, at least through the air?
Right. I think that the plan would be to keep it on the ground.
Even with their number 3 running back.
Yeah, with Guerrero. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like he's going to produce a lot, just like McCaffrey does. The Bears are allowing a league high rate of yards before contact per rush. Teams have really established it when they can against the Bears. The Bears face one of the highest rush rates in the league while trailing, so in other words, they go down, teams establish it even harder. So I think that's going to be the plan. Can the Niners pull it off in their current state? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical on that, but I also think that it should be a pretty good thing for Deebo Samuel, who I believe would be involved in the short area game a little more with McCaffrey out.
This is a classic. Like, if it's not this week for Deebo, it's not happening the rest of the season. Because Deebo, they have Patrick Taylor Jr., they have Izzy Abanikanda behind Isaac Guerendo, and no one else. Like, Deebo has not produced on the ground this year. His carries have basically been wasted plays, but there's kind of no scenario where he's not the number 2 running back this week, I feel like. So it really, really needs to happen for Deebo this week. And Denny, we've talked about it like on every show we've done this week, so our listeners have probably already heard some about this, but Isaac Guerendo, are you comfortable calling an RB1? It feels weird, but I do have him inside the top 10.
I don't see why not. I mean, I struggle to come up with like a rationale for not putting him up there. Like we said on the Tuesday show, like you're easily starting him over like Breece Hall.
Yeah.
If that's a call.
Dark,
no,
I think right.
Patrick Taylor rugpull.gif.
Taylor's only even seen offensive snaps in 2 games. Obviously, that will change.
Izzy Abanikanda rugpull.gif.
What did he join the team on Tuesday or Wednesday?
Izzy would need at least 7 seasons in this system to get 1 carry from Kyle Shanahan.
Frank Gore unretire run.
I mean that's actually possible. We should.
Why
look
did they?
That.
Is Frank Gore Jr. still on the Bills like practice squad? That seems like a textbop sign him off their practice squad.
Oh yeah,
like do that.
Yeah, treat him as the real Frank Gore. Is there, Kyle, any daylight between these Bears wide receivers? A lot of short targets, a lot of compiling. Kind of everyone is getting some. Rome Odunze still not really producing as wide receiver 3. Like, what is the daylight between these 3?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think it was last week, the big change was DJ Moore finally got to be involved on intermediate and deep throws, and he dominated the targets. For the first time, he out-targeted Keenan Allen or Rome for the first time under Thomas Brown, only 2 games, but to not get more targets than either of them 2 games in a row. And the offense was built out of screens. How could he not? Finally goes out and does that, and does it on a multitude of different types of targets. Feels like I love DJ Moore, so as soon as he's like has a glimmer of hope, I'm like, do it, push the chips all in. But he's really good. He got a bunch of targets last week. I am gonna kind of comfortably rank him ahead of Keenan Allen. Rome has to be ranked 3rd among them. It just the connection hasn't quite been there between him and Caleb. I still think he's playable because he does go out and earn targets, and they're high value, high variance targets. But in this spot where the 49ers are really good at preventing explosive plays through the air, it's a tough one to start him in.
DJ Moore is the Bears' Jamar Chase, and the fact, like, listen, I know the other receivers are fine, but maybe you should stop that and just give the ball only to DJ Moore. I say this as someone who I don't think I drafted him in any leagues.
Who did the you're not invested in this. Who did the Bengals play last week? They played the
Steelers. It was like the greatest game of all time.
Mike Tomlin said something like the reason we kept getting penalties on T. Higgins targets is because when Shaq gets the ball, you foul him. And
that doesn't make sense, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I really think coaches see T. Higgins as like generational.
Man, well,
they should start. Chase season is generational. He sees more targets than Chase every single week.
I feel like coaches are like Jamar, whatever. Like I don't care what.
They think he's just a yak merchant. Jamar.
Yeah, but like I think you know why? Because it's like T. Higgins looks like a great receiver from like 1998.
I was gonna say T. Higgins wins football, like wins as a receiver in the ways that Mike Tomlin watched growing up. Like he's one of those guys. He's good at it though. He actually he's really good. I think we've been caught in the trap of this guy could be wide receiver 1 on any other team too many times before. I'll get caught in that again next year if they let T. Higgins walk.
Coaches should consider playing fantasy football once, where they would then notice T. Higgins never plays.
They should. They should look at the spreadsheet.
Denny, real quick, who do we trust in the 49ers passing attack? I mean, Juwan Jennings, I guess we're starting, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jennings for sure. 10-team league, and you haven't played Deebo lately. I think it might be time to sort of open your mind a little bit and maybe get him in there because CMC's out. And then Kittle Kittle's target per route run rate has really dropped over the past few weeks. So
another, this like, what are you doing? Just watch him play one time. Please.
So I don't know. It makes me think that they just don't really care at this point with him.
George Kittle, he's got to be out there blocking for Isaac Guerendo. He should absolutely not be.
He's not really blocking though. That's the thing. He's running a good number of routes, and they're just not throwing to him. This whole Niners thing is collapsing. I mean, it's done. They're done. The window's over. The window's closed.
The house of cards has collapsed. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't even think Purdy's future there is guaranteed at this point.
Wow, that got dark really fast.
I don't know. I mean, why? Like he's a guy.
I don't even think the team's existence is guaranteed. Just ship him off to San Jose or whatever.
They're going to be the second Vegas team.
Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of bad vibes, the Panthers' good vibes face an existential threat as they arrive in Philadelphia as 2-score underdogs. Denny, lay out realistic Carolina expectations here, and who, if anyone, can we trust from the Panthers in our bye week lineups?
Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking about likely runaway game script here against the Eagles. I say likely because I'm not totally buying that. Because my guy Bryce is all the way back.
They just suffocated the Ravens last week, the Eagles.
I know, but maybe
they didn't. The Ravens didn't have Bryce freaking Young, baby. Like, what are you talking about? Come
on. So I'm not sure about. But okay, here's the thing. Thielen for sure. Thielen's in play in 12-team leagues. Xavier Legette is somewhat in play. David Moore, okay, who Wait a second. The guy's seen 18 targets over 2 weeks.
Guess who's coming back this week?
I know. Jalen Coker. He's back. That destroys everything. I don't know why, but it does.
Jatavian Sanders also back.
And Jatavian Sanders, who thankfully did not suffer, I guess, a major neck injury like I thought he did. He's going to be back. And so Jatavian Sanders is interesting because when he was before that injury, he had completely taken over the tight end one role and was running like 80+% of the routes in this offense. That could be a lot of routes this week because I think Carolina will have to be pass heavy. So he's interesting off the waiver wire.
Carolina's been ripping it with the pass rate over expected too over the past 2 weeks. They're like, I think 6% pass rate over expected in their past 2 games. They've been, shootout style games. Obviously, I think both went to overtime, but a lot of teams there still lean on their ground game unless they're getting blown out. And they were willing to at least pitch into the shootout efforts for both those games. So as Denny points out, just a lot of volume to go around. Like probably not a lot of touchdowns, a lot of efficiency. No. It's a tough spot.
The Eagles are allowing 6.2 yards per attempt and 178 yards. So everyone's trailing against the Eagles, and they're still only getting to 178 yards per game. Yeah. So we say everyone's trailing against the Vikings. That's why they give up 442 passing yards per game. Everyone's trailing against the Eagles, and they're not getting any passing.
Yeah. No, Kyle reminded me of a stat I have here: 72% drop back rate for Carolina over those past 2 games. I think we'll see more of the same here.
Kyle, I asked Denny, can we trust anyone from the Panthers in our lineups? And it kind of includes Chuba Hubbard, where, somewhat predictably, Jonathan Brooks is not really doing enough to create standalone flex value, at least not yet. But he is doing enough to endanger Chuba Hubbard's RB2 value. What do you tell people about Chuba versus Brooks this week?
Yeah, you basically put it how I would have put it is you're not starting Jonathan Brooks. He looked really good on his very limited workload, but it was just that. Very limited, not enough to start him. But it also meant Chuba got down to a 57% share of the team's carries. That was his lowest rate since week 2. He's been a true workhorse for almost the entirety of the season, and that's just not what we saw last week. He still dominated the snaps, ran plenty of routes, but they also had designed targets for Jonathan Brooks that otherwise probably go to Chuba Hubbard. So you're still starting him this week, but I do think there was a point in time in which if you tell me the offense is actually humming and Chuba's out there getting all the work, he's fringe RB1 adjacent. And this is not where we are. It's definitely just an RB2 start for him.
It is a shame. I mean, listen, good to have 2 good running backs, but it is just kind of like, what was the plan here with the extension for Chuba Hubbard? Just kind of a crazy situation. Anyone have anything to say about the Eagles, by the way? Dallas Goedert appears to be out with a knee injury. Devontae Smith seems like he'll probably be back with his hamstring injury. So. The Eagles, there's just nothing to say about the Eagles.
No,
they're the Eagles.
You have Grant Calcaterra, but as the tight end one with Goddard out. But honestly, I mean, you could have in this game, you could have like 20 dropbacks for Hurts.
Oh, so now all of a sudden the Eagles are going to easily control the game. Interesting.
No, right. I mean, likely. What I meant was 20 pass attempts for Hurts, so likely that's going to happen. In my deranged imagination, Bryce Young, forces these guys into a pass-heavy script, which nobody can do. By the way,
the Bryce Young narrates me back to. Yeah, never mind. He's Josh Rosen.
No. I'm in, man. I'm in.
You guys are right. Young has been. He's like. Because listen, I'm not going to try to retcon history. I wanted to take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. And then I was like, what? A guy who played like so in rhythm and with like so much confidence at Alabama. I was like, where has that player been? Like, I guess he's just too small and has no confidence. And as Kyle has pointed out several times, and Denny, the confidence is back. And all of a sudden he's actually playing some in rhythm and actually effective football. Really, really big test though against the Eagles. The head-spinning Cleveland Browns rematch with the Steelers is somehow touchdown road underdogs after their Week 13 roller coaster, Kyle. Matchups predictably do not seem to be mattering for Jameis Winston. Does this one, and is Jerry Jeudy a wide receiver one? I've been noticing an industry trend to like continue to like pretend like Jerry Jeudy is not doing this. He leads the league in receiving since Jameis Winston took over as starter, even though that includes a Browns bye week. Did matchups matter? For Jameis Winston also leads the league in passing, by the way, in that time frame. Do matchups matter for Jameis? Is Jerry Jeudy a wide receiver one?
I'm probably still not putting him quite in that wide receiver one rank yet. Like
no said Tillman, 235 yards last week. Continue.
He had a lower target share than Elijah Moore last week. It was also lower than it was.
Steal your point. Guess when you don't need a lot of targets is when you're gaining 60 yards every time you catch the ball.
Yeah, but on the plays where he doesn't do that, they're like, we're not going to keep going to him. It's Elijah Moore says. And, both of these guys are wide receiver twos. And I do think if you want to like quibble and be like, Jeudy is the wide receiver 11 or 12, honestly, like that would be fine. He's completely starting. There's no circumstance with this many teams on bye that you're not starting him in your wide receiver 2, 3 or flex spot. He has to get in there. I think Elijah Moore is like a fringe. You have to get him in there, guys. Well, because on my other point, I have my notes here. You said, does matchup matter for Jameis? I have hell no, brother, written down. Didn't put any stats, just wrote now.
Even the Steelers one where he didn't do that great. I mean, it was not a blizzard, but it was a winter wonderland. Amazon.
And I checked on the weather for, I think this is at Pittsburgh. It looks fine. Like ugly Midwest weather, but like 40 degrees, no like bad precipitation, no bad wind.
The first ever good weather game in the history of the Steelers. That's real big for Jameis.
It was good as putting it lightly. When it gets 43 degrees in Charlotte, I die. So, it's good from Midwest standards.
You'd have muscle memory if you ever moved back here. I played this game a little bit.
No.
That actually is true.
I'm a coward, man.
I played this game a little bit with Denny on Tuesday, Kyle, but Jerry Jeudy or Tyreek Hill?
Oh, Jeudy by a mile.
Jerry Jeudy or Cooper Kupp?
I'll go Kupp there, but I'll go Kupp there.
Dude, Jerry Jeudy had not had fewer than 73 yards since Jameis Winston took over as quarterback. That's all I'm saying. Jerry Jeudy or Malik Neighbors?
Jeudy.
Really?
No, I'll go Neighbors. I can't. Neighbors sees the ball so much. I'll go Neighbors.
He sees the ball. He doesn't do anything. He's had like 70 yards since like week 4.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Jerry Jeudy or George Pickens?
Jeudy.
One more. Drake London.
Jeudy.
Kyle's frozen, by the way. So what you guys just admitted.
I didn't realize.
Kyle got so tilted that he froze. So a good time to ask Denny about, we just witnessed the biggest day in years for Russell Wilson. Why does it still feel difficult to trust him as a QB1 streamer this week, or is it not difficult? Am I overthinking it? The lay of the Russ land, Denny.
Okay. So last week we saw the Steelers go 14% over their expected pass rate against the Bengals. And actually Najee Harris told our own Maria Taylor on the Sunday night show that the reason they did that was not the plan. They wanted to establish it hard against the Bengals, but they were showing them defensive looks that basically forced the Steelers to throw like again and again. And that's what we had. Now, so they were 14% over their expected pass rate. Their previous season high, Pat, before that was 0%. So quite the little shift there by Arthur Smith. Overall, they are still 30th in pass rate over expected. So we're going to see them get back to that. That's why last week seems to me kind of fluky. I will say Russ only has a 5.3% touchdown rate on the season. That's not egregious by any means. It's not like due for backsliding or regression. And Pittsburgh has an implied total of 24.75. Yeah, that's good. Like, if the Steelers are going to score some points here, he'll probably be involved. So I think he's fine as a streaming play if you don't have like a top end quarterback.
He did average almost 10 yards per attempt 2 weeks ago against the Browns also. So back-to-back weeks where he's been flirting with the 10 mark. But I agree with your Scott. It's a little hard to envision like the Steelers committing to the pass again. But maybe they don't need to fully commit. Maybe you can hit those big plays here.
Yeah.
Kyle, people have been getting mad at me for continuing to rank Jaylen Warren in the top 30. Is this indeed a faux pas, or is it just kind of the sorry state of running back right now?
I mean, I would have been totally in lockstep with you up until last week. I love Jaylen Warren, and he's playing a lot better over the past month than he was earlier in the year. And if I told you last week he tied another Steelers running back in carries, you'd be like, oh man, both him and Najee saw 15 carries pop. We'd be very happy. Now I will share with you the information is that he tied Cordero Patterson with 3 carries apiece. His route rate fell, his snap share fell. He was still efficient, particularly through the air. I think he had over 40 yards and just a handful of catches. It's a tough week. That seems like an anomaly. It's the only time since he's been, healthy over the past 6-ish weeks that they've really gotten CPAT even meaningfully involved. I want to just write it off. I'm scared, but I do think the best thing is like we've got 6 or 7 weeks of CPAT being a distant third, just a handful of snaps and mostly special teams. And Jaylen Warren is the number 2. There's been no talk of an injury, a recurring injury, at least for him. I think I'm just going to write it off and hope for the best. Because otherwise, other than last week, he's been getting like a dozen touches a week and relatively efficient on them. As Denny said, good implied team total. I still think he's top 30, although I'm a little scared from last week.
Well, Denny pointed out, they basically said they viewed that entire game plan as an aberration against the Bengals. So maybe that's more Jaylen Warren cope. We will be right back after this. It's an AFC West showdown between Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City this Sunday evening. Coverage of the matchup with major playoff implications begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Which, of course, brings us to the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been reduced to literally begging their opponents to beat them. Please, God, we don't want this anymore. We don't even want to make the playoffs. Who the Super Bowls? Who cares? We've already done that. Like, I want to go home. I want to rest. Please, someone beat us, and the Chiefs still easily win. They're going to try to lose again this Sunday, but they're 3.5-point home favorites against the Chargers. That seems very modest, Denny, for what 11-1, 12-1 team. A grim status quo has taken hold in the Chiefs' skill core. But the same is not true for the backfield. What did we see in Isaiah Pacheco's return, and what can we expect in Week 14?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were ever going to give him like a full workload last week in his return. He did have the one long run on his 7 carries, but Kareem Hunt also saw 7 carries, of course, for 15 yards rather than 44 that Pacheco saw. I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco, as soon as this week, takes a more prominent lead as like the clear lead back because Kareem Hunt seems pretty cooked to me. As far as route running goes, Pacheco only ran 10 routes on 52 dropbacks for the Chiefs, and Hunt was at 20 routes. I don't really think that that's going to hold up. And again, with the bye weeks, I think that you just play Pacheco.
I could not agree more. Kyle, any further lean on the Chargers backfield? It was a season-high snap percentage for Gus Edwards without J.K. Dobbins last week, but still only 6 carries. Kind of playing into the theory I was floating out there that, like, it doesn't really matter who else is healthy or available. They view, like, there's a Gus role, and that's just really kind of how they view him. Kamani Vidal had the longest run. Anything to add to this? Do you think we could see more Kamani Vidal? Hassan Haskins had a very early, very costly fumble last week. What is your lean on the Chargers backfield?
Yeah, after that, Haskins wasn't really involved. I wouldn't really factor him into it. They only had 10 carries to split between Vidal. I guess there was like 1 for Haskins. Between Vidal and Gus, 10 carries. Gus sees 6. Vidal sees 4. So like 40% of that 2-man split, obviously like 1 goes to Haskins, is not bad. I think it puts it in very clear 1A, 1B territory. And if you're telling me like I get the young, spry, maybe explosive 1B, like I'm very comfortable just ranking Kamani ahead of Gus. Like, what do you win with Gus? The theory is that he goes out and sees 70% or 60% of the carries, but if you're giving some to Justin Herbert, 1 or 2 to Hassan Haskins, and 5 or 6 to Kamani Vidal, you're capping him at 10 touches and just praying he gets into the end zone.
Well, yeah, the theory with Gus Edwards is like the Nick Chubb theory. Like, listen, he's not good anymore, but we know he's going to get the ball if they happen to get to the 1 yard line, especially after Hassan Haskins fumbled last week. That is the Gus Edwards theory.
Yeah, I'm just going to bet on who I think is like more fun to start.
Spoken like a true best ball bro, but I digress.
I don't think any of these guys are interesting, honestly.
I think that's probably the better way to put it. Yeah,
Denny, there are 19 teams on bye. You sure about that? Only 13 teams playing this week. I don't know. There's an odd number of teams.
Gus Edwards, like maximum points this week is like 9.
It's 11.2.
That's with the touchdown.
That's with 2 touchdowns. 9 with 2 touchdowns. His max is still 9.
Denny, anything of note going on in the Chiefs receiver core? Like, who cares? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, DeAndre Hopkins, 55% route rate over the past 3 weeks. Not great, but
useless.
But wait. There's more. He's been targeted on 25% of his pass routes, so that's that. It actually does offset, kind of. Xavier Worthy, too small, of course. 20 air yards per reception. This season. He's barely leading Hopkins in air yards since Hopkins joined the team.
He's leading the social media platform formerly known as Twitter in cut-ups of him not catching.
Man, yeah, people love to pretend that those are close. I mean, Mahomes is a bad downfield passer.
Please, I will not accept.
And Worthy is too small. Like it's.
I think the problem is not that Mahomes is bad. He's out of practice, man. He's thrown 3 downfield reps all season. True. All of them suck. He's seriously like there is so much that needs to go right between him throwing to Xavier Worthy and Xavier Worthy catching a pass. Xavier Worthy has to catch it. Literally never going to happen. Has to stay in bounds. Does not know where the big white lines are. And Mahomes has not been accurate when throwing to him. It's awful. This sucks.
And he gets bumped around so easily.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking about the throw and the catch, but him getting off the line of scrimmage is a challenge.
He never gets off the line of scrimmage. I mean, that goes without saying. That's why it's always out of rhythm, because when he does, he's always there like 2 beats too late.
Yeah,
it was such a bad pick. Oh my gosh,
I've seen better ones. Lad McConkey shoulder they were talking in the game broadcast last week how much pain he was playing through. He since injured his knee. This game is a have to have it for the Chargers. So I think he's going to be out there, but can we trust Lad as a top 20, a guy who was frankly starting to push for wide receiver 1 value, especially with the 8-catch first half where they fully committed. They had taken the governor off. Then he injures his knee. Any thoughts you guys want to share on Lad McConkey?
I mean, if he plays, you got to throw him in there.
Yeah, I mean, he was at practice on Wednesday. I would assume extremely limited. They list him as limited. I assume it's very limited, but he's played through injury before. I think he's going to be out there. And like you said, it's a have to win spot essentially. Like, I mean, they're still going to make the playoffs if they lose this game, obviously, but it's a spot that coaches will deem as have to win. So I think he's out there and you're starting him.
The Kansas City secondary is pretty bad right now.
Well, there was some of Jalen Watson hurt, I guess, and apparently that makes you awful.
Yeah, since week 8, only 4 teams have allowed a higher pass EPA than Kansas City.
Coincides with his injury, the young man's injury.
So I think you should feel okay about starting Chargers receivers if you have to, beyond, of course, Lad, and then maybe even get weird with Justin Herbert.
Okay, guys, it's the Guillotine League. There's 2 receiver spots. I filled up all the flexes with running backs because my team is, of course, a colossus, a juggernaut. I have Justin Jefferson as my locked and
bench him, send him out of there.
Who should the second receiver spot be? Mr. Jerry Jeudy, Mr. Terry McLaurin, JSN, or Lad McConkey?
Oh, Jeudy.
I have Jeudy in there, actually. Wow,
yeah, Jeudy.
I just prayed for days like this to agree with me.
You could very well convince me on Lad. But sure, just do Jeudy. Yeah.
If Ladd were healthy, I wouldn't even have added Jeudy.
I think it would be Ladd, but Ladd is like one tackle away.
He's going through the ringer right now. They're giving him his rookie lumps.
So between the wide receiver 1 rank I have and the guillotine, I have dangerous levels of investment in Jerry Jeudy this week, and may or may not be losing my mind in the Slack chat on Sunday. The defenseless Cincinnati Bengals and Dallas Cowboys square off in Texas with a total trying to clear 50, not quite getting there, Kyle. There's really not a whole lot to say here, to be frank. These are two pretty narrow, well-defined teams. The Cowboys have a few moving parts. Kyle has no moving parts because he's frozen. Oh, he is back now. Brandon Cooks is back. Jake Ferguson is about to join him. Even with 6 teams on bye, is any Cowboy beyond CD in the skill core, not including Rico Dowdle, startable, Kyle?
Nah, don't worry about it. I think if we didn't have Jake Ferguson coming back, I would say start.
Is Fergie actually coming back? By the way,
I think he's back to practice. Yeah, he's back to
practice. They didn't have a practice for Wednesday because they're playing Monday night. So did he practice Thursdays? I'm asking. I have no way to find this out.
Okay, producer Adam says he cleared concussion protocol, which he missed, I think, 2 games or something like that with concussion. So it would make sense for him to be back this week. But I don't know for sure that he goes out and gets all the snaps right away. Schumacher's played pretty well, and they spent some draft capital on him a year or 2 ago. So, like, it's not the great spot to come in and start this guy who's just perfectly mediocre, and I don't know what his role looks like. And then Brandon Cooks, he actually got like a decent 18% target.
He did. Poor Kyle. Poor Kyle.
Oh, wow.
Kyle absolutely loves to freeze, Denny. Denny, you absolutely love to talk about Rico Dowdle, who easily overtook your guy, Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke was never relevant this season. What's the situation in the backfield where they appear to have fully committed to Rico Dowdle? I am ranking him in the top 20 this week.
I'm looking powerfully into who made me do the Zeke bit, because that didn't end up very well. They've committed to Dowdle. 23 of 26 running back rushing attempts last week against the Giants for Dowdle. He ran a route on 20 of 37 dropbacks. He had 3 targets. It's not so bad. And playing a Bengals team, it's top 10 in rush yards after contact this season. So a team that can be run on. I think you got to start him. Like if you have Dowdle, you need to get him in your lineup.
I thought you were going to add about 2 more qualifiers to the rush yards after contact there. Rush yards after contact and the dome.
Well, I was going to say over expected minus expected.
Anything at all to say on the Bengals, by the way? I mean, the Bengals are just kind of like the Eagles. It's like, they're the Bengals. I'm not really sure what else to say. They have good players who score fantasy points.
Okay, so the Gesicki thing, just real quick. Yes, he's out there running a lot of routes. But anytime T. Higgins is involved, it's completely over for Gesicki. Like, he just does not get targeted. So yes, I guess he's a streaming option in deep formats, but you could definitely Jatavian Sanders to me is a much better option than Gesicki this week.
Much better is a bit of a stretch.
Really?
Yeah, I mean the total is about 50. It's in the dome. It's a team that has to pass.
But I mean,
they can't defend.
He's just.
No.
By the way, the Cowboys are going to win. I just want
cool. Got it. No further questions. Next topic.
Hell yes. The Bucs are approximately touchdown home favorites against a Raiders team that probably just had its performance of the year, but in a loss, Denny. One game is one game, but was it enough to say Aiden O'Connell not only will not hurt Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, he may even help them?
Yeah, you made me look pretty silly, Aiden, saying that you were not even an NFL caliber quarterback, and then you came out and almost beat the supposed best quarterback in the world for a second straight year. Bowers and Myers combined for a 73% target share against Kansas City last week. So that's very fantasy friendly, right? Like, we know where the ball is going. Bowers is being targeted on 30% of his routes over the past 3 games, which is like obscene for a tight end. And I just want to throw this out there, since there are a lot of bye weeks, as people know. Trey Tucker running a lot of routes, running almost all the routes last week. Never targeted, but you never know against a pass funnel Bucs, an extreme pass funnel Bucs defense.
Extreme pass funnel. That's what we absolutely love. Please allow us to pass. But on the other side of the ball, they're not passing to Cade Otton since Mike Evans came back.
Why would you, man?
It's a bit surprising to me because he was commanding targets even before Evans and Godwin got injured. Jalen McMillan, quote, ain't it. Sterling Shepard definitely ain't it. They're not passing a ton to the running backs right now. Is Cade Otton season just over, though, Kyle? Two very concerning data points since Mike Evans returned.
Yeah, he's got like 16% target share, basically no air yards on those targets since we got Mike Evans back. When you have one really good receiver, just throw it to him and don't worry about throwing it to Cade Otton. Seems like a pretty linear progression there. All of his production came with both the receivers out, and even obviously Chris Godwin never comes back. Even once they get one good receiver, it seems to just be over for him.
Okay, now get to the good part.
Hold on. Bucky Irving's really good. The good part lies elsewhere on this team because it doesn't lie in the tight end position.
Need some good Cade Otton news.
Sorry.
Denny, no one wants any news in the Raiders backfield, but we have to give it. I don't know, man. Alexander Madison might come back. Amir Abdullah is the best running back they've had all year.
No.
By the way, I'm the only one who remembers it. He pronounces it Abdullah, by the way, not Abdullah.
Good note.
Because I remember 2017 facts. Last time Amir Abdullah was relevant.
You remember that preseason run, that one preseason with the Lions?
Preseason.
Oh,
not even a joke. I remember where I was when I first saw it. Getting off a plane in Cleveland, Ohio. Not a joke.
Really?
Yep.
I think I remember putting in trade requests for him that day. I don't know where I was when it happened, but I remember being on the ESPN app and like trying to trade for him.
I had him in our dynasty league, and I felt like a millionaire. I'll let you guess what happened next. Denny, but yeah, anything about this Raiders backfield?
Yeah, so Abdullah's running a route on 80% of the dropbacks over the past 2 games, but that has only netted him 8 targets over those 2 games. So not much to see there. Sincere McCormick outcarried Abdullah last week, 12-10. McCormick now averages 5.8 yards per carry on 17 rushes and is definitely the best running back.
Say I am sincere in my desire to instantly be better than Alexander Madison and Zamir White.
And yeah, right. And so depending on if Madison and White come back, I guess that's no more McCormick. But McCormick, I think he should be rostered in like deep formats, honestly.
Antonio Pierce has this guy, Sincere McCormick. Like this kid's impressive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that means something for a running back. I mean, obviously it didn't mean anything for Trey Tucker, but maybe it means something for McCormick.
He's also given us a great remember this guy candidate. 3 years now. You remember Sincere McCormick? No, it's gonna be good times.
Sincere McCormick is already a remember this guy. While he's still active and maybe relevant, he's already a remember this guy legend.
Exactly.
Sincere McCormick. And by the way, you buried Trey Tucker. AOC's not doing that. AOC's throwing to Trey Tucker, brother.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, not really.
I mean, there were a lot of routes being run last week, and
there were.
Yeah.
And they still lost too. So maybe I should throw to Trey Tucker more. We should take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Scotty Scheffler and an all-star field of golfers hit the links in the Bahamas this week. Watch the Hero World Challenge today through Saturday on Golf Channel and Peacock. And check out the final round Sunday on NBC. Coverage begins at 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
Golf in the Bahamas sounds amazing.
It does. Man, the Bahamas is so far out there, man. You ever looked at a map and the Bahamas is way the F out there.
What's the time difference?
I bet they're in the Atlantic time zone, so probably an hour ahead of the Eastern, maybe 2 hours ahead, to be frank, though.
No way to know, unfortunately.
There's not. It might be on Brazilian time. They're at least on Atlantic time. They are not on Eastern time in the Bahamas. I don't know. We'll never know. The Arizona Cardinals are for some reason favored against the Seahawks this weekend. Although neither of these teams remain anyone's idea of good, Kyle. We seem to see different usage out of Marvin Harrison Jr. last Sunday. Real or fake. Absolutely love when it's the fourth quarter in week 13 to begin targeting my number 1 first-round wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call even his usage that much different. Still had a 15 ADOT, still ran go routes at a rate higher than the average NFL wide receiver. A few things did change meaningfully. He had a 38% first read target share, which is extremely high, not for him and for anyone, but it was the same types of targets, which make it a bit frustrating. And I said that was a really good matchup to exploit explosive plays, and they definitely forced the explosive play issue going to Marv. This is not that. The Seahawks have actually been top 10 in most of the preventing big play measures through the air. So I do feel like this is a frustrating return to form coming up for Marv in that you get 6 targets and you're praying he gets home. I think he had 12 last week. We're not getting 12 again.
Kyler, just such a fraud, man. Stop. By the way, it's apparently the Eastern time zone in the Bahamas. This is 4:20 in the Bahamas right now. Nevertheless, never owned. Denny, Seahawks wide receiver check-in. JSN appears to clearly be better than our guy, DK Metcalf, but the target levels have come all the way back down to earth where they were before DK got hurt. Was that a bottoming out? He's been going over 70 yards every week in that process. Tell us a little bit about the Seahawks receiver.
Yeah, whether it's by his own design or the offensive design or the lack of protection by the offensive line for Seattle, Geno Smith is like bottom 6 in air yards per attempt. Like he's
no way to know what's going on there. Geno just checking it down all day. No clue whose fault this is. All looking for the Genos who did this to us.
Well, he's
horrible. No, he's absolutely horrible.
He's not horrible.
The film watchers they love Geno. Oh, thread a needle. Like, who cares? I mean, he's in the NFL. I would hope he could thread a needle.
Yeah, well, just like I'm sick of the Stafford stuff, I'm sure you're sick of the Geno stuff.
No, Geno. Okay, to strip away the bit and the artifice, like he is good. He's stuck in the no man's land between like clear starter and back. He's not a backup. He's not a clear starter. He had one really good year. He regressed off that year last year. He has regressed further this year. Just kind of not a surprising career arc. Sorry, Denny.
He has a 2.9% touchdown rate, which is ranks 30th among 33 qualifying quarterbacks. So you would guess that at some point that'll bounce up, but who knows? As for the receivers, DK Metcalf last week had a 54% air yard share, 31% target share against the Jets. That kind of came out of nowhere, related or when you look at recent usage between him and JSN. JSN's ADOT has average depth of target has bounced around a lot the past few weeks. It went from 2 in week 12 to 15 in week 13.
15 was his highest in a non-DK Metcalf game this year. It was meaningfully different than every other game other than the one incredible game DK Metcalf missed.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 games, but whatever.
So it's hard to like pin down what his role is in this offense. You're starting him. I don't really know how they're going to use him though here. And I think you can feel pretty good. Maybe Metcalf is finally healthy, and he can get back to that early season form.
I think we're going to see the DK rug pull this week. He was not good on 9 targets last weekend. JSN continued to be good. I've gone full heel on DK. Yeah,
I know.
Look, see his agility drills at the combine 9 years ago. Finally, never good.
That's a throwback.
By the way, I was thinking of Bermuda. Bermuda is the one that's way out there. The Bahamas is just off the East Coast.
So I was going to ask that, but I was like, you would know way better than I would.
Yeah, just off the East Coast. So very clearly in the Eastern time zone. Not even. Yeah,
it's basically the Outer Banks. It's just right off the land.
Kyle, is Kenneth Walker any good?
So I probably don't actually think he's as good as the spreadsheets do. Spreadsheets
think he's good.
Yeah, PFF stuff really.
Based on what?
He's number 1 in PFF's overall rushing grade. He has the third. Yeah, he's forced the third most missed tackles. I will say, I think. So this is where I think he's not as good as PFF would say, is that he's forcing a ton of missed tackles and has not been awfully explosive when he forces missed tackles, or just in general, really. And that's sort of the Dameon Pierce first year, Najee Harris most of his careers. Like, they are actually physical dudes who are good at breaking tackles.
I will say physical to his detriment, where he breaks so many tackles, he's got to be super banged up.
And I will say Ken Walker in the past has been a really good home run hitter. It's not really what we've seen from him this year. So I think the answer falls somewhere in between what PFF sees him as and what you see him as. The sort of good news quote is that Zach Charbonnet ain't it. He has the most carries in the NFL without a 15-plus yard carry among running backs. And the guys below him on that list in terms of carries, no explosives, are Gus Edwards and Ezekiel Elliott. He offers nothing as an actual explosive between tackles guy. So even as Ken Walker is maybe not living up to the hype as a home run hitter, he's clearly their best option.
Yeah, that I fully agree with. But yeah, he's gone negative in rush yards over expected finally. Yep. He has not reached 4 yards per carry in any of his past 5 appearances. That probably every tackle breaker, that is what happens after the season. Like, well, he had a deep bruise on his quad. He had an ankle injury. He also broke his arm, and he kept playing. I mean, of course, we didn't put any of this on the injury report.
No, of course.
He played through all of this. So I can't believe he was a warrior. I mean, yeah, you didn't know he was hurt, but Denny, do we even feel good about starting Kyler at this point? I mean, stop.
I mean, not particularly. It doesn't sound like you're gonna accept any other answer. So.
No, I mean, it's like the QB 12. It's just like, man, it's one touchdown. It's nothing explosive down the field. Seems scared to run again. Like he's not doing the explosive runs. But what's the count?
Well, I mean, we were joking when he had the couple, I think, back-to-back games with huge runs. Really, well, if he could just hit that 45-yard touchdown rushing every week, then he'll be good. But yeah, I mean, last time they played Seattle, he only ran twice. This is 2 weeks ago against Seattle. It was a 16-6 loss. What did you say, 3 weeks?
No, it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
2 weeks. Okay. He only ran twice for 9 yards. His average or his adjusted yards per attempt was under 7. So that's not good. Yeah. I don't know. You're starting him probably because like you're.
Seriously, why? Seriously, why?
I would start. Okay. Give me some options to start over him.
All right. Kyler Murray, or Sam Darnold.
Darnold,
I think.
Kyler Murray or Mr. Apparently, no one can accept the truth. Kyler Murray or Jameis Winston?
Jameis.
No, J-Mo. J-Mo, come on.
Kyler Murray or Jared Goff?
Goff. They just score 1 billion points every week.
Yeah, easily Goff. I mean, not even a debate. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I can't get with Goff or something.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's tough. He's the original Kyler Murray in that he's not good. But unlike Kyler Murray, he gets schemed very, very well. The Titans host the Jaguars team, once again missing its quarterback, Denny. Mac Jones was merely bad instead of embarrassing in Week 13. Can we still play Brian Thomas Jr. and Evan Ingram against also a bad Titans team? But the Titans have to be the worst ever pass defense to be allowing the fewest passing yards in the league, by the way.
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
They're so bad, and yet they allow the fewest passing yards.
Well, that's because teams just score other ways. Like they score the Titans.
The average field position you start at like they're 27. Yeah.
I mean, the Titans special teams worst in the league by every measure.
Yeah.
And teams
every third week, Will Levis gets to give you a free touchdown on defense.
Right. They're pick sixes, and the teams can just establish it and kind of take the air out of the ball. So that's why you see that. It's a good spot. Look, I'm actually writing this game up, not under threat of death, but just by my own choice. I'm writing this game up in the funnel defense report, which will be on the site tomorrow on Friday. And the reason is the Titans are a top 5 pass funnel. And look, the Jags can't run the ball. They cannot run the ball. I think that they just simply are going to drop back and throw it a bunch. I think Brian Thomas, who ran ice cold last week, over 200 air yards. I think that.
Yeah, why would Brian Thomas have a bunch of air yards and couldn't complete a single one of them? Who was throwing him the football there? Trevor also missed a really bad interception on a deep throw to Brian Thomas, so it's not all Mac Jones, to be clear.
No, it's not. It's unfortunately not just Mac Jones, but yeah. So I think Ingram. Parker Washington, and Thomas are interesting.
Kyle, anything of note in the Jaguars backfield no, this was actually meant for Denny. Sorry.
Who cares?
Got distracted. This is not a joke being messaged by Zach Kruger that Bill Belichick interviewing with the University of North Carolina.
Yeah, I saw that.
What?
Yeah, I know. Bill down utterly horrific.
Yeah.
No one's ever been down worse.
Is he going to be the head coach or the defensive coordinator?
No, he's a special teams coordinator.
Yeah, no, he would be the head coach. Denny, real quick, anything of note in the Jaguars backfield?
A little bit. I have something here. Last week, Travis Etienne had 13 rushes to 7 for Tank Bigsby. Bigsby had a slight lead in pass routes, so that stinks if you're trying to get some copium for playing ETN this week. And like I said, the Titans are a massive pass funnel, so I don't know. Neither of these guys really strike my fancy, as the Zoomers say.
Dude, Arthur Smith turned down that UNC job, and Belichick is groveling for it.
Yeah, that is, dude. Seriously, but I'm sorry, not to relitigate this, but the Falcons hired Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. Like this,
Falcons are going to win the South.
And they did
not only hired Raheem, they were going to hire Bill, and there was an intervention from the GM who doesn't know anything. Rich McKay. Sorry, not the GM. It was Rich McKay, the team president. He's not even the GM. He's like, no, we can't do it. Dude, Like, come on, man. Like,
I will say, intervening to not hire like the greatest coach of all time is a move. That is certainly a power move. I mean, to be fair, he was definitely doing. He's like, I will lose all my power the moment Belichick.
That
walks
is
through the door.
100% why. Yeah,
Obviously, he was serving his self-interest.
Anytime Brandon Staley's anytime you can hire an Aaron Donald merchant over the greatest coach in the history of the league, you have to do it, Denny. I'm sure you disagree.
They did nothing wrong.
Kyle, is it wheels up to stream Will Levis with 6 teams on bye, or is he still just too volatile?
It's fringe streamy. He is a big play hunter. He's, not leading, but he's up near the top in terms of just overall ADOT, his deep throw rate. As Denny's pointed out, like he's one of the guys who doesn't care about too high looks. And the Jags give up nearly the most explosive plays. They're a really bad team defending deep downfield. That all sets up well for Levis, who has played a lot better since his benching, a trend among multiple quarterbacks. He has multiple touchdowns, I believe, in 3 or 4 games, 240 yards on average over the past month. He's playing all right. He gets a really good matchup. He's definitely probably at the top of the streaming conversation, but I don't think that quite makes him a QB1.
Will Levis or Caleb Williams this week?
I kind of think I'm Levis there.
I'm Caleb.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Will Levis or Russell Wilson?
Levis. Oh, that's weird.
Russ.
It's Russ for sure.
Will Levis. I changed my mind. Russ.
Will Levis or Mr. Geno Smith?
Oh, Gino's a fraud. Levis.
Gino for me.
I do. I have Levis one spot ahead of Geno. Cool. I'm counting on some explosives. Kyle, real quick, anything of note in the Titans backfield? Tajay Spears. Was he back last week?
He was. You wouldn't really know it by his box score, but he was. He didn't see the ball much. He did run some routes. He took some routes off the plate for Tony Pollard, but Pollard saw over 70% of the carries. Maybe that changes as Spears gets back in the flow of things. He's barely played this year, it seems like. So that could shift, but I do think if last week is any indication, they're probably viewing Pollard or viewing Spears strictly as a change of pace back to their clear RB1, Tony Pollard.
The Giants and Saints are both running out of players, but will face off in New Jersey with the Saints operating as somewhat healthy road favorites, despite not having the best player in the league, according to them, Taysom Hill. Kyle, are the Saints officially a one-man team without the aforementioned Taysom? Like, seriously, Alvin Kamara and any Tipton season?
Yeah, I think did you imagine Tipton? Tipton's got big former American football wide receiver vibes.
Not a joke. During the podcast Tuesday, I did go to Wikipedia, and he said he was still a New Orleans Saints wide receiver, so he is still on the team.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't matter. People are going to say MVS. He has a 13% target share in his past 3 games. He won't get away with it again. There's no way. There's no God if he keeps scoring touchdowns, albeit there may be no God. Who knows? And in terms of other players,
I think MVS's continued touchdown is proof of a greater being.
I actually am.
I guess it depends who you ask there. Yeah, not for me. Certainly doesn't make me feel holy, but whatever. Jawan Johnson had like a 19% target share last week.
All right, yeah, stop. Yeah, that's
fine. I don't.
No, I'm joking.
We don't need. No, that's basically all I had. He saw a bunch. Less than 20, but still a very viable tight end 2 streamer amount of targets.
Denny, someone has to talk about the Giants pass catchers with Drew Lock.
I appreciate you giving me that job.
Dude, I just had to talk about Jawan Johnson and MVS and Mason Tipton. So
I could do
Dante Pettis is on this team. They have like UFLers running routes. So
okay, the people need to know. Look, Jawan Johnson has an injury. If he doesn't play this week, you got to jam Foster Moreau.
Yeah. At least as of Wednesday, Jawan was limited practicing, and he's always banged up. So he's
Jawan is hurt a lot.
I mean, we're talking 8 targets for Foster Moreau.
I literally have Foster Moreau on my dynasty team, and I am waiting to pull the trigger. Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, Giants, Drew Lock.
Yeah. Giants, Malik Neighbors targeted on 30% of his routes against Dallas last week at a 6.1 average depth of target. That's exactly what we like. We mean just continued scammy type targets for our guy Malik. Wando Robinson ran all the routes last week, but only had 2 targets, so I guess that's notable. Theo Johnson was second in targets on the day against the Cowboys with 5. He is now on injured reserve out for the year. With a foot injury, Daniel Bellinger appears to be the tight end 1 for the Giants just for sicko deeply.
Pat, do the snoring bit. Do it. Go. Execute now.
No. Honestly, instead of the snoring bit, I'm going to say Daniel Bellinger. Oh, it's not a showdown game. Never mind. I was going to say
Every game's a showdown game if you're willing to play for no stakes.
Yeah, no, listen, you get it. Hey, maybe Dulcich is active and he's at the 200 minimum. You know,
now we're talking folks.
Daniel Bellinger in cash or a GPP?
Both, man.
Both. Any.
He's a GPP.
All the above.
He's not a cash play. He's a GPPer though, for sure. I don't know. Yeah, all right, I guess we're done. No, we're done.
I love to end a podcast with I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Giants and the Saints. I brought it on ourselves by ending the show that way. But there's lots of interesting teams to talk about in Denny's funnel report, Denny's regression files, and Kyle's 32 stats, and Kyle's stardom situm, and my rankings on our podcast throughout the week. Denny will be answering questions about all of it in his Friday chat at noon Eastern. So for Denny, for Kyle, I am Pat. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sticking with us all week, and we'll be back this weekend to break down the Sunday slate.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.